Okay, thank you. Almost seated. All right, welcome back. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now I'm going to show you Dr. Beaver State's exhibits number 347 and State's exhibit number 341. If you take a look at those, please. We discussed them briefly, but I want you to take a look at those.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are those familiar to you?
Yes, sir.
And those, again, are pictures from the autopsy that were taken that you performed?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'd like to have those two exhibits entered into evidence, Your Honor. Thank you. Can the witness step down, please? Now, Dr. Beaver, first I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's exhibit number 341. As we talked about your testimony earlier, will you explain to the jury the significance of this photograph and what that helped you ascertain?
So the first thing that I didn't mention before, but it's a good thing. So I didn't mention this before, but it's a good thing this reminds me. Insect larvae are here. So that's what those are. And so flies will come to the body almost immediately within a matter of minutes. They lay their eggs and the eggs hatch. And that's what you're seeing there. It takes a few hours for the eggs to hatch. So these are the marks on the side of her face that I was talking about earlier. They're parallel, and remember they're yellow and kind of waxy looking, so they're post-mortem. There's no blood pressure to cause these to hemorrhage. They're occurring in the post-mortem interval. And because of their parallel like this, pretty much all running the same direction, that makes me think that there's a surface there that's now scraping across your skin. So to me, this means that the body has been moved in the post-mortem interval. Somebody's moved the body after death. And it also tells me a little bit about the insect activity too.
Thank you, sir. Now, next, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's exhibit number 347.
So
explain to the jury what that is and the significance of that photograph, please.
So we talked about the photograph with the letter L in it before, and it's showing the right side of her head and right side of her neck. And here I talked about the stab wounds to the ear on the other side, and here I folded up the ear so we could see behind it. And you can see again the two parallel lines of where the stab went through the ear and then went into the neck. This is not a fatal wound. These two parallel wounds are not fatal, but they're of interest because it's helping us to identify the weapon. You can see some of the insect larvae are in her hair, and then there are some wounds here. This wound here goes into the skull and the brain, as does this one. Also, this wound here is somewhat unusual in that it has what we call a dog leg. Dog leg just means like an angle. And what it means is that the knife, either the knife or the body, they have turned relative with the blade in place. So if you stab this person and then you twist the knife, or they move their head, you can create this dog leg type of situation. So I know that and here I believe that the blade hit the skull and then was deflected, and that's what created this dog leg. Skull is very dense bone, has two tables, so there's like two layers of bone, and this would be a place where that would happen. The wounds on her neck, you can see them here. What's interesting of these wounds is that you can see that how they're kind of squared off at the back. This is a straight line, and it's sort of a V at this edge. So here, squared off, these two don't show it as well, but that helps me to tell this is a single-edged knife, so it's not a double-edged weapon, and that the heel of the knife, the flat part of the top, is here, and the cutting edge is there. So it orients the knife relative to the body.
So Dr. Beaver, as
Yes,
I
sir.
hand to you again, States Exhibit number 225, I'm going to give you these gloves if you like. Holding States Exhibit number 225, that to you. That weapon, as you compare it to the actual sharp force injuries that Ms. Josephson sustained, tell us what your opinion is.
So this knife has the two parallel blades, and it would be stabbed like this. So, this knife fits. These are single stab wounds, so the knife would have to be like this for these. And it has a flat part here, so the flat part would be like this. This one has a flat part too. This has a more serrated edge to it, and that leaves distinctive markings on the edge of the wound sometimes. I don't want to get into it, but I think this might be where this part of the saw blade was used, but it's too hard to say for sure.
Thank you, sir. Turn to the witness stand if you would, please. Now, I'm going to show you what's, we talked about this briefly. States Exhibit number 352. May I hand that back to you, sir? And just reorient yourself with that picture, if you would, please.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, in your 29 years as a pathologist, again, some 10,000 or so autopsies that you've done, do you always find DNA under fingernails?
No, sir.
Let's talk about that just a little bit with State's exhibit that I just handed you. What is it that you do during an autopsy when you photograph fingernails?
So during the autopsy, we use the autopsy as a means to collect evidence. So we clip the fingernails and place those into an envelope, and then that is turned over to law enforcement for analysis. So we take each fingernail and we have a clipper and we clip them, and then we put the clipper in with the fingernails. So they've got the clipper as well as the fingernails. In my experience, the DNA is hit and miss. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. And there are so many places in which the specimen can be compromised. The first is that the person doesn't have any DNA under their fingernails. They didn't scratch anything, or they didn't get the material.
That's good with his expertise.
Response.
Your Honor, he's a forensic pathologist. He's been doing this 29 years. He's examined over 10,000 bodies, and Judge, he's got an opinion as to why DNA wouldn't, if a person doesn't have DNA under their fingernails, he's giving a reason why that would not happen based on his experience.
He hasn't been qualified in that area. He has sustained the objection.
Thank you. So you talked about reasons here or there. You clip fingernails, you turn them over to law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and once you've done those things, At that point in time, again, after you photograph the fingernails, do you do anything particular after that? Did you observe anything particular of her hands that were of interest to you and her nails?
She had injuries to her hands. Also, I don't think her nails were very long. As I recall, they weren't long. They were fairly short. So I don't know if that affects the recovery of DNA.
And so as we wrap up, you gave an opinion as to the cause of death here.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The cause of death here is what?
Multiple stab wounds.
Okay. And the blade that actually inflicted those stab wounds was what?
It's the tool you showed me with the parallel knife blades.
States Exhibit number 295.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's all my questions at this time.
Cross-examination.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. May it please the court.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And you have a copy of your report with you today, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the date that you examined Ms. Josephson, that was March 31st. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And during that exam, you're wearing protective gear,
Yes, ma'am.
right? Gloves. Is that right?
Yes, gloves. Yes.
Wearing protective gear on your hair, on your head
Yes.
to cover your hair,
Yes.
and probably on your body, right?
Yes. Yeah, we wear a plastic gown that goes over the head, has sleeves, actually hooks over your thumb. Then I personally wear 2 pairs of gloves, and I have a hat, and then I have a mask. And it's a paper mask similar to the ones that are here like this.
Right.
And then I have booties on. And then under all of that, I'm wearing scrubs, clothing that stays in my office that doesn't go anywhere else. And MUSC has a service, a machine. I turn the scrubs in and I get new scrubs every time.
Gotcha. And anyone else that would be present with you in that exam room, they would have protective gear on as well, at least gloves.
Yeah, for our technical staff, they all would, including the person that takes the x-rays. Sometimes law enforcement comes in and they don't.
You told us earlier that your exam starts by doing an external kind of view of Miss Josephson's body, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You take her weight,
Yes, ma'am.
right? You indicate that she was 160 pounds at the time of autopsy.
Yes, ma'am.
She was 69 inches tall.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. They're laying down.
Long, I should say.
Yes.
69 inches long, and that is 5 feet 9 inches.
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
correct? Otherwise, a healthy adult female.
Yes.
Okay. And you also, during your kind of external exam, you take note of the clothing that she has on,
Yes, ma'am.
and any notes about that you put in your report, anything you observe.
Yes, my exam of the clothing is more superficial. Get the kind of clothing she has on, and general description. I don't go into detail examining the clothes because I'm going to take them off and I'm going to package them, and they're going to be sent to an evidence technician who's going to examine them thoroughly.
Because your job is related to examining the body.
Body, exactly.
In this case, it came with clothing on it,
Yes, ma'am.
on her. And you did mention in your report that you noticed defects in the clothing,
Yes, ma'am.
specifically her shirt,
Yes.
and that it was heavily bloodstained.
Yes.
You go on to make notes about her fingernails.
Yes.
And in your report, you indicated that they were medium length at the time.
Okay.
Today, you're telling us that you thought they were fairly short in length.
Well, they're not long, let's put it that way. So I was in the idea of getting DNA under your fingernails. Long fingernails will be more effective in getting some kind of DNA under your fingernails than short ones. So hers are medium length, so probably a little bit longer than mine,
But you noticed that they were medium length,
right.
and they would be, show you my nails, longer than my nails.
I think yours are about medium length, maybe.
This is medium length.
Yeah, so if you can see, on short is no white, okay? No white
Yeah,
color.
but I have no white on my nails.
Hard to see your nails, but
But you were able to notice with the nails that she had evidence of tearing. That's what you put in your report.
correct, yes.
And at the autopsy on March 31st, you take the clippings
Correct,
and along with the fingernail clippers that you clipped with, put those in a bag, right?
correct,
An evidence bag,
correct,
and those get sent off.
yes,
Law enforcement takes those, right?
yes,
Takes those back to the lab, right?
yes.
And you go on to tell us about you notice that there are offensive wounds on her knuckles. Is that right?
I'm not sure what you mean by offensive wounds.
I believe you told us as it relates to picture 352, states 352. No, are they up there? Is that 352 that you noticed on her knuckles?
Yes, so the discoloration is on this part of the knuckle. Well, do you want me to talk about this or not?
Well,
Is there a question?
the question was, you noticed a defect with her knuckles,
Yes,
and that is on her I believe that her right hand, left hand, which hand is that?
it's the left hand.
And you told us on direct that was indicative of a blow.
I said that it could be blows or struck.
Okay, like she hit something.
Yes,
Okay. And on the flip, there was a stab wound to the other hand,
correct.
and we call that a defensive wound.
Yes,
Something that you would see if somebody put up their hand to stop something from happening.
yes,
And that went through and through.
yes,
You also told us that Ms. Josephson experienced significant blood loss,
yes, I believe so.
that it was difficult to even obtain a sample to send off for toxicology.
Yes,
And the deepest, and I'm just looking at your report here, and correct me if I'm wrong, the deepest wound we noted here was that 7 centimeters, I believe?
yes,
And that was to her thigh. Is that right?
yes.
And 7 centimeters is what?
3 inches or so.
Less than 3 inches to, I think it's 2 3/4 maybe.
Okay,
And that's the deepest wound. I'm not gonna touch this. We've seen it plenty, but the weapon that we talked about here today, it opens up. You said, is that right?
yes, I had not seen the weapon before it was presented to me today, so I did not know that it opened up until I saw it this morning.
But you've
And-
been told, you had a conversation with the prosecutors in preparation for trial where a discussion about this multi-tool was had, right?
Yes, that was like a few days ago.
Mhm. And during that conversation, you would say that Some of the wounds are consistent with being made by the multi-tool in the open position and some in the closed position.
Correct.
So there was some information you had prior to today about what type of weapon was alleged to have been used.
Yes.
Okay. And then also at that time you told him there was evidence of offensive wounds because of the discoloration and defects you noticed on her knuckles.
I'm having trouble with this offensive wound thing.
And I'm just using the words that we were given that you would be testifying to.
Okay. So do you want to hear what my problem is or not?
Sure. Yeah. Sorry. Please.
Okay. So the knuckles that are in question are the ones that show defect are these here, like this one.
Okay.
And this one and this one. Okay. So offensively, when you make a fist, mostly you hit these knuckles, not ones that are in, and not necessarily these. So I don't know exactly how those knuckles were injured. They could have been injured in throwing blows, but I'm not going to say that they are offensive injuries.
Okay.
It's a fine gradation of logic, but
I understand.
that's what I mean.
But based on that photograph and your observation, it appeared that she hit something.
Yeah, she hit something or something hit her.
Gotcha. And you described these wounds, and there are a lot of them. I believe you said there were over 120 or around 120.
Yeah, something like that.
And multiple stab wounds in a small area. That indicates to you close in time, or close together in space, close together in time.
Correct.
This is a rapid, these are rapid stab wounds.
My opinion.
Yeah, based on what you observed on the right-hand side of her shoulder, right?
Yes.
And that grouping of wounds there, right?
Yes.
Okay. And again, we have wounds all over her body, right? In all areas of her body, not covered completely, but they're not just on her head, not just on her torso, but she had some on her legs, her foot, her
Correct.
back, right?
Yes, she has wounds in many places.
You were able to see those as you examined externally. You were able to see those and make notes
Yes, ma'am, and photograph them.
and photograph. And did you do any measurements, or I guess you did mention that you had done a Google search to see if you could find anything, but did you, other than, did you measure the alleged weapon in this case?
I never even knew this weapon existed until a few days ago.
Okay. So it has two different blades, right?
Yes.
And then when it opens up, there would be a blade on each end. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I didn't know any of that until just a few days ago.
Okay. And you didn't get a picture of the weapon at that time.
No, and in fact, I sent law enforcement a picture that I thought might be the weapon just from my search of thousands and thousands of images of knives. And, but it turned out to be something entirely different.
Interesting. Beg the court's indulgence. Do you remember who you sent that picture to?
No, ma'am, I don't. This was a long time ago.
Right.
I sent it literally within maybe 3 days of the autopsy, and then I haven't visited this autopsy since, until we had the discussions a few days ago.
Would that have been a South Carolina law enforcement division investigator?
It was somebody who came to the autopsy.
Somebody who came to the autopsy. Okay. questions. Thank you so much.
Redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Dr. Beaver, you said that we keep getting bogged down in this term offensive wounds or offensive wounds.
Yes, sir.
You essentially said that with her left hand, she hit something or something hit her, correct?
Yes, that's a better way to characterize it. And I'm sorry if I was unclear before.
What kind of things in the back of the car could a person hit?
The door, I suppose, the window. I don't really know. I don't know the car, so I don't really know.
And so based on your testimony, based on the cross-examination that was just offered, you said essentially the knocking knuckles, as some people call them, is what was
Yeah,
injured?
exactly. What we would call the first interphalangeal joint, but this is the knuckles right here, not the ones that are on your actual hand,
Right.
but the ones that are on your fingers. The first one on your fingers. That's
So
what's in this
kind of
picture.
these ones.
Exactly. So they could be, but they're not completely characteristic of offensive injuries.
Now, let's talk about the knife again. Is it possible to have a wound that's deeper than the length of the blade?
Yes, sir.
Explain that to the jury, please.
So when the skin is compressible, you can push in and it will give. So when the knife is pushed against the skin, the hilt of the knife, the handle, pushes in on the soft tissue and allows the blade to go deeper into the soft tissues. So it's fairly common to see wounds deeper than the length of the blade, particularly on the abdomen and on the chest area, but also on the thigh where there's a lot of soft tissue that can be compressed by the hilt of the handle of the knife.
And you saw that in this case?
I did not see that hilt or handle mark, which is sometimes good for us to see, but that's what I measured it. When I put the probe in and I pulled it out and I put it against the ruler, that's what the length was.
And how long would it take a person to die from these wounds?
The injuries to the brain and the carotid artery are fairly severe and the bleeding would be profuse and very rapid. So I would say a matter of minutes, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, maybe 20.
Okay. Court's indulgence, Your Honor. So that's all my questions. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
You may step down. Thank you.
Your Honor.
Your Honor, may we approach the bench briefly?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. May I please court?
Yes, sir.
The state calls Justin Martin.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please have a seat, state your full name for the record.
Justin Andrew Martin.
Mr. Martin, please tell this jury where you're employed.
I work for the Fifth Circuit Solicitor's Office in South Carolina.
How long have you worked for the solicitor's office?
Approximately 4.5 years.
All right, and what is your position there?
I'm a body cam and video analyst.
Body cam and video analyst, what does that mean?
I collect and distribute body camera evidence from multiple law enforcement agencies within the district, distribute that evidence to the appropriate staff in our office, and I also help with compatibility and codec issues with surveillance video from various private and public entities. I provide redaction services for trials, and I also create demonstrations of video and audio evidence for trials.
And you referenced surveillance footage. Does that include the likes of statewide security?
It does.
That's a business that Mr. Shealy, who was here earlier this week, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And as part of your duties, you review surveillance footage such as this?
Yes, sir.
In some instances, does that include the editing of some of those videos?
Yes, it does.
And how so?
I will take evidence that we often receive a tremendous amount of volume of video. Oftentimes we'll receive video that has nothing to do with the trials. Law enforcement gives us cameras that aren't necessarily on the scene of a crime. Sometimes the video files can be extremely lengthy and ranging from 10 minutes to several hours long, when the action that pertains to the case really only consumes maybe a minute or less of that camera footage.
All right. And we can show you State's Exhibit number 3 and State's Exhibit number 12 that are both already in evidence. You recognize those?
I do.
And State's 3 is what?
That is video from the bird dog business.
And State's number 12?
That is security footage from statewide security that is owned by Mr. Shealy, I believe.
All right. And approximately how much content is on the statewide security videos in State's number 12?
I believe there's about 28 gigabytes of video, and that roughs out, because of the system that they use or the different cameras that they use, it roughs out to be around 25 hours of video.
So if you were to watch every video on State's 12 all the way through, it would take approximately 25 hours. Is that what you're saying?
Give or take.
All right. And additionally, the videos on State's 12, you've had an opportunity to review those, correct?
That's correct.
As provided, were they in any sort of sequential time or location order?
They were labeled by an approximate area of the camera's locations. They were not organized by time or by position, only by chapter, which is could mean a different camera location or different time frame in which that camera was recording.
When you say that they were labeled in some way, what identifying features were they labeled by? Not the chapters, but the cameras themselves.
They might have the location of the corner, an intersection that the camera footage was recorded at, and that's the most of it. Either it's that, and then at the lower level, it's a chapter number.
All right. And did you have an opportunity to create a PowerPoint in order to try and streamline the information contained in those 20-some hours of video?
I did.
And that's as a result of States 12 and States 3?
Yes, sir.
Okay. During the creation of this PowerPoint, what was the focus of what you were looking for in those videos?
A black Chevy Impala.
Okay. And specifically as it pertains to the Impala, were you looking for times and locations of the Impala
That is correct.
on March the 29th of 2019?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were you able to, in fact, find clips of what appeared to be a black Chevy Impala?
Yes, I did.
Did you pull those clips and put them as part of your PowerPoint?
I did.
And those were pulled from the originals provided by Statewide?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Martin, when you do that, do you alter those clips in any way?
I do.
How do you do that?
I reduce the amount of time on the clip. I start a video clip at the beginning of when the action of the Chevy Impala is on camera. And then I generally cut when the action of the Impala is no longer on camera.
Okay, and are there additional features that you might insert into the videos in any way regarding those clips?
Yes, I will sometimes duplicate the video layer and create a highlight on the actionable part of the Impala, especially in areas of the video where there's a lot of other action and camera occurring on scene.
So you would highlight the activity of, in this instance, an Impala, right?
Yes,
Is that what you're saying?
yes,
And then also in various cameras, would you also then zoom in as well?
yes. The technical term would be to scale and translate, but really I'm just stretching the pixels out so that it feels more of the actual screen space on the display. And then I reposition the video layer so that the area that the Impala is on screen fills the screen more fully.
Even with the edits, as we'll call them, that you've just described, do the clips included in your PowerPoint, are they a fair and accurate representation of how the originals appeared?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you also use maps in this presentation?
I do.
What are those maps of generally?
I made several maps with images with little triangles on them that indicate the view angle of the various cameras that the video was captured from.
And what was the purpose of that?
The cameras throughout Columbia and the Five Points District are numerous. There's several of them. They are oriented in different positions and different directions on different streets. The purpose of it is to show what angle you are seeing what footage from.
The maps that you refer to, do those also provide a fair and accurate depiction of the locations that you're describing?
Yes, sir.
And would use of this PowerPoint assist you in showing what's believed to be locations and times of what appears to be a black Chevy Impala?
It would.
I'm going to show you. It's been marked as States 358 for ID. What is that?
That is a DVD presentation I put together and burnt onto a disc.
And is that a DVD of the presentation that we've been discussing here in the last few moments?
It is.
And the contents of this are the same as what you have been discussing.
It is the same content.
All right, this time we'd offer States 358 into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
Submitted without objection.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. May the witness step down? Thank you. Your Honor, permission to publish. Thank you. Mr. Martin, I'm going to ask you to try to keep your voice up while you're down here so the court reporter can take down what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
All right, if you would give the jury some sort of orientation as to what this map from States 358 is.
This is the Five Points District where the incident occurred. This is Divine Street heading east. Down, and as it merges here, it turns into Garners Ferry Road, which is also 378.
Is that also known as Sumter Highway?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you earlier referenced on these maps that there were some triangle shapes of some kind. Can you tell us what those are on this map?
Each one of these triangles represents a different camera on the same pod from Sheely or statewide security. So oftentimes these pods will have 3 or 4 cameras on each device. One is facing due west, one is facing north, or due east, one's facing northeast, and one's facing north. And this is at the intersection of Divine Street and Fort Jackson Boulevard.
East of 5 minutes. cameras?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, and do you have those clips from those cameras?
I do. And there, in the following slides, the first video is from this position. The second video is from this position. The third video is from this position.
All right. So this is looking which direction on Divine/Garnish Ferry Road?
This is looking east on Divine Street before it turns into Garnish Ferry Road in front of the Bilo, across the street from the intersection of Fort Jackson Boulevard and Divine Street.
So Sumter is that way and Columbia is back towards me.
Sumter is heading away from the camera. 5 Points is toward the camera. And we see here
What appears to be,
what appears to be a black Chevy Impala.
okay. And that's again heading towards Columbia.
That is headed toward 5 Points at approximately 1:48 a.m. on March 29th.
When you say approximately, why do you say that? You can let it play while you answer my question.
The boxes that house the various cameras, each location can have variations in the timing or the clock that burns this time into the video image. They can vary various amounts from each location because of possibly power outages or other technical issues that might occur at that specific location.
All right. Show us the next one, please.
This is from the same location, but the camera is pointed slightly more to the northeast. You see the same vehicle here moving toward 5 Points. And again, same location, looking more northward on Divine Street, heading toward 5 Points at 1:48:23 a.m.
Okay. And if you could orient the jury to this map.
So from the previous location, the previous camera angles that we looked at would be over here, approximately 2 miles further east from the current triangle, which is on the intersection of Divine Street and Holly Street. This camera is facing due east.
And 5 Points is where in this?
On the left side of the screen, approximately 6 blocks from this camera angle.
Okay.
Again, the time on this one appears to be approximately 1.5 minutes fast. You see the chevron and the same body style as the Chevy Impala.
All right. And then this map next shows what?
So this is further down Divine Street,
Same street that
the previous video indicated.
Okay.
This is further west on Divine Street at the intersection of Divine and Hardin Street. These are 2 cameras located outside of Lucky's Bar. The first slide that we'll see is from the north-facing camera facing Divine Street, and the second video is facing northeast directly into the intersection of Divine and Hardin Street.
So the street that we're looking at here is which street?
It's Divine Street.
Vine Street. Is this an example of one of those highlights that you were referencing?
Yes, sir. Car comes to a stop behind a champagne-colored car. Take note of the rims on this vehicle. They are 5-spoke rims with splits in them. Car has some identifiable markers, such as those rims, has a shark fin antenna, the taillights grade down on the top horizontal lines toward the center of the trunk. It waits there, continues forward toward the intersection. This camera is located panned slightly more to the right, as we saw on a previous map. You can see the champagne-colored car here as it waits to go through the intersection, and the Chevy Impala here waiting behind. It waits here for several minutes as the
Now, I'm sorry. You referenced the car in front of what appears to be the Impala, it's a champagne colored car. Why do you reference other vehicles or other pedestrians, things like that in these videos as you're describing?
When you get into a busy area like this, you start to have an easier time locating specific instances or certain vehicles because of continuity. Certain cars are moving across the intersection before this car passes into the intersection. You can identify that the cars are the same or the pedestrians are performing similar actions in similar corners. That way you can tell that even if the time does not match up on the camera, that you're still seeing the same period of time because the action is the same. You're just seeing it from a different angle.
All right. Where does the black car go from here?
It waits here until the light indicator turns green and it continues west on Divine Street past Hardin Street.
Where, if you could, in this camera angle, approximately where is the bird dog bar located?
You could see, it is hard to see from here.
Is it kind of obstructed by that sign
It is. There's a parking lot here. The bird dog and natural vibrations would be obstructed directly behind this 5 points banner on this utility pole.
All right. All right, so we're going to talk a lot about this area, this 5 points area. Can you give the jury kind of an overview of some of the key streets in the area and how they all interact with one another?
Absolutely. Divine Street is the street we've been watching the Impala drive in on. It has a little hook. It turns down here towards Saluda Avenue. This is Blossom Street. This is Hardin Street, which goes north all the way to Richland Hospital. This is Green Street. This is the 5 Points Fountain. Natural Vibrations and the Bird Dog restaurant are right here.
On Hardin Street.
On Hardin Street. And this is a parking lot that goes from Hardin Street into Saluda Avenue. This is yesterday's restaurant. We don't have it on here, but there is a bar called the Cotton Gin right here, which we also have some video from.
And so the next cameras are going to depict from the area of what was yesterday's restaurant, is that right?
Yes, sir. It faces northeast, the first camera, and the other camera faces due west. Again, you can see the black Chevy Impala waiting at the red light. When the light turns green, it continues west. You'll see a white truck pass. It headed east. And then the next, again, to show continuity, you see the white truck approach the stoplight. It will sit here for a moment. You can see the highlighted area here as the black Impala continues west towards Saluda Avenue. It comes to a stop at a stoplight there. It's also followed by a black car that pulls into the right lane beside it. Comes to a stop at the intersection of Divine and Saluda Avenue.
All right, and what is the next?
And there's a large passenger bus that follows alongside. I mentioned these things to show continuity. The next camera angle is facing southwest, looking down Saluda Avenue from the intersection of Divine Street and Saluda Avenue. It shows the median here and this intersection at Blossom and Saluda Avenue.
And can you describe the setup of Saluda Avenue here? You mentioned the median.
Yes, there is a very large, wide median that separates the northbound lane and the southbound lane on Saluda Avenue. As it approaches the fountain and 5 Points, there is a break in the median at the intersection of Divine and Saluda, and there is a break in the median at the intersection of Blossom and Saluda.
And then the median, does it extend across Blossom Street into the neighborhood here?
Yes, the raised median continues into the neighborhood, and there's a north and a southbound lane for Saluda Avenue. moving south from that location as well.
So this is looking towards that neighborhood, is that right?
Yes, sir. And there's the black car that was to the right, black Chevy Impala turning into the left turn lane, and the large passenger bus continuing on to Blossom Street.
And the approximate time, I understand your caveat about not being able to say the exact time, the approximate time at this point is what?
Approximately 1:57 a.m., March 29th. We sit here for a little bit of time waiting for the light to change. But the Impala performs a U-turn and comes back north on the northbound lane on Saluda Avenue, gets into the right turn lane on Divine Street to head back east.
And just to make sure we're oriented, so is that turning right here, is that headed back where it just came from on Divine Street?
That is accurate.
Okay.
This is a previous camera angle that we just looked at as we watched the Impala move towards Saluda Avenue. We're going to use the same camera to show the action of the Impala moving back toward the intersection of Harding and Divine Street. And in addition, there's another camera angle on the side of the same building from the same group of cameras that faces directly across the street of Divine Street. And again, this one has been highlighted. Its right turn indicator is on as it approaches the intersection. This is turned slightly to the right near the same location. The right turn indicator is on. You can see the rims match. And it turns right back south onto Harding Street. These two cameras are near the Cotton Gin Bar.
And we, just for a refresher, we were right here just now, is that right, the corner of Divine and
That is
Hardin?
accurate. The
And the
car
car turned-
traveled from Divine Street down Saluda, stopped here, performed a U-turn, came to a stop at this intersection, turned right back onto Divine, and now has turned right back on South Hardin.
Okay.
It's been highlighted. You can see as it pulls past the yesterday's building, it turns right onto Hardin Street, headed south. This is paying slightly to the left. Same car approaches Blossom Street and Hardin Street, turns on its left indicator, and circles back around again, heading north again on Hardin Street.
Back towards Divine, is that right?
That's accurate.
Okay. Next one, please.
From here, the car continues on past. It sits here as it waits for some other traffic to move forward. And this is the previous camera we just viewed. The black Chevy Impala will appear on the left side of the screen. We'll continue northward on Harding Street. We'll change into the right-hand lane. It's avoiding pedestrians. It comes to a stop at this traffic light at Divine and Harding Street.
What direction does it travel from there?
It continues north on Harding Street. The next two camera angles we look at are outside of the Bird Dog restaurant. The first one is facing due east. The second camera is facing northeast.
And so what you've described thus far, correct me if I'm wrong, is been down in this area, and then just now we witnessed here on the Hardin Street block between Divine and Blossom, is that right?
Right. It continued here and circled back around here and headed back north, and is currently sitting at the intersection of Divine and Hardin Street.
Okay. So this is looking back which direction?
This is looking southeast. It's the car as it passes. And it's north on Hardin Street. And this is a camera angle slightly turned left as it continues north on Hardin Street. And you'll see a gray truck here.
And approximately what time is this?
This is approximately 1:59.
Where is this camera in relation to the bird dog bar?
It is slightly to the, if you were to stand and look at the Bird Dog restaurant, it would be to the right. But it's more in front of the Natural Vibrations
Okay.
business, which is next door.
So from this angle, though, the bird dog would be to the right? Is that
Yes, sir.
right? Okay.
So moving further up Hardin Street, the previous camera angle we just viewed from is right here near this parking lot of the Bird Dog. Impala continues northward on Hardin Street. It passes Green Street, and at the intersection of College Street and Hardin Street, the next several slides are from these three camera angles. We start at this angle, 2 videos on that angle, and this angle and that.
And is there a particular point of interest there as a reference point in this area?
There's a Chick-fil-A that's very popular. And 5 points right here. There's some more raised medians.
So where would the Chick-fil-A be in regard to this camera box?
Approximately where you're standing,
Okay.
but further back another 100 feet. You see we got the gray truck following with continuity. Back. This is another angle facing more northward. You can see a black Impala turning on its turn signal, performing a third U-turn as it turns around and moves south on Hardin Street, headed back into the Five Points District.
Back towards Divine,
Yes, sir.
back towards Bird Dog?
Yes, sir. And this is just a zoomed version with a highlight to show. There's the gray truck. The hatchback is behind there. The Impala performs a U-turn and continues south on Hardin Street. This is turned right again slightly. You can see the same car continuing south and pointed even more south this angle from the same camera box. Yes, sir.
Looking back towards,
Back
Bird
toward
Dog and
5
Divine.
points, yes. And then again, for continuity, we'll see a white car following it now as it heads back toward Green Street. The next camera is south of the previous camera, looking north outside of Breakers Bar at the intersection of Hardin Street and Green Street. See the black Chevy Impala continuing south on Hardin Street, and the white car is still behind it. This camera is located outside of Natural Vibrations. It's facing northwest.
and that is where in relation to Bird Dog?
It is directly next door to the Bird Dog restaurant. It faces northward. You can see Hardin Street, a little bit of this parking lot from this angle.
The approximate time on this camera?
1:59, 2 o'clock a.m.
What does the black Impala appear to be doing here?
It's turning into the parking lot beside Natural Vibrations. And it appears that it pulls all the way through the parking lot to exit on the back end of the parking lot.
You can go enter and exit either side of that parking lot, is that right?
From Hardin Street or Saluda Street, or Saluda Avenue, excuse me. This camera angle is located on a camera box at Green Street and Hardin Street. It faces south. It's near the 5 Points Fountain. The camera angle shows at a distance the parking lot that the black Impala just pulled into and down Saluda Avenue.
It shows that parking lot from the opposite side of what we were just looking at, is that right?
It shows it, yes, from the previous camera angle, it is the opposite angle.
So where is Saluda Avenue and where's Hardin Street here?
Harding Street would be on the left side of the frame. You can see the black Impala pulling through. In the center of this camera angle is the northbound lane of Saluda Avenue.
Northbound lane, which way is traffic flowing at this point on that section of Saluda Avenue?
Saluda Avenue, it would be coming toward the camera. You see the black Impala turns the wrong way onto Saluda Avenue, has to pull off to the side slightly to allow oncoming traffic going the right way on Saluda Avenue room in order to pass.
And so the correct lane of travel would have been where in relation to that?
It would be further to the right on the other side of this median, closer to these buildings on the right, behind this tree here. You can see it continues southward on Saluda Avenue to the intersection. And this is a zoomed in version of that same video that gives you better view as the black Impala pulls into the intersection or into the parking lot beside natural vibrations. Pulls through the parking lot. And exits heading southward on the wrong direction on the one-way section of Saluda Avenue. So it pulls off to the side so that the oncoming car can pass. And then it continues southward toward the next intersection.
Mr. Martin, to your knowledge, were you privy to review every single camera and every camera angle in all of 5 points?
I do not believe I was.
All right, so what does the next slide depict?
This is
Where were we just before and where are we going?
okay. The Chevy Impala came down Hardin Street, turned right into this parking lot, and then exited left onto Saluda Avenue, heading the wrong way. And this is another camera facing northeast from the intersection of Divine and Saluda Avenue. This is the car previously headed the proper way up the northbound lane of Saluda Avenue. You can see down here in Impala moving out of the way. As it passes, it allows it continues south on Saluda Avenue. This is Divine Street again. Comes to a rolling stop. And turns left, headed east again on Divine Street.
Approximate time at this point is what?
2:02 a.m. Comes to a stop at a parallel parking spot in between the yesterday's building and the TD Bank on Divine Street. And its brake lights turn off. It continues to sit here for approximately 3.5 minutes.
Continuously?
Yes, the lights do not turn on. No dome lights appear to turn on. The headlights don't turn on.
Does it appear as though anyone gets in or out of the vehicle during this 3+ minute time frame?
No, sir. So this is a previously viewed camera angle on the side of the yesterday's building looking west on Divine Street. The Impala has moved south on Saluda Avenue, coming out at this intersection, turning left, and coming to a stop at one of these parallel parking spots right here on Divine Street. So you'll see again, Saluda Avenue is over here.
And the vehicle ends up parking behind this line of cars somewhere, is that right?
Yeah, somewhere obscured slightly by these pedestrians under this awning here. You'll see the car come to a stop at one of those parallel parking spots. You'll see the headlights disengage. And it will rest there for about 3.5 minutes.
All right. When does the car move out from this point?
I believe it's around 2:00. This camera is about 2 minutes slow, or 2 minutes fast. I'm sorry. So it would be around 2:04 a.m. You see the headlights have turned back on. The Chevy Impala re-enters traffic, headed east on Divine Street toward the intersection of Divine and Hardin Street. Its left turn indicator is on, and it moves into the left turning lane at that intersection.
And again, you see the same features on the vehicle in terms of the rims and on the rims of the vehicle.
The shark's fin antenna. This is a previously viewed camera angle again, facing north on the side of the yesterday's building, right at the intersection. The Chevy Impala will come in from frame left. See the rims, have a lot of detail. Comes to a stop at the intersection in the left turning lane.
Does the car go straight up Divine, or does it turn left on the Hardin?
It turns north on Hardin again, followed by this blue Jeep.
Blue Jeep going to continue on behind the Impala.
It will follow the Impala north on Hardin Street. So this next one, previously viewed again at the corner of Natural Vibrations near the Bird Dog, looking northeast up Hardin Street. This video has been slowed down to 25% normal speed.
And the individual standing there in the middle of the frame.
It is the victim, Samantha Josephson. You can see the black Chevy Impala continuing north, followed by the blue Jeep.
This is at approximately
206, 205. When it approaches Green Street, you'll see that the blue Jeep continues north, passing the Impala on the left. The Impala turns right onto Green Street. And this is just again to show the continuity you saw before. It was being followed by this blue Jeep. We'll use that to show continuity again shortly. This is a zoomed in version of the previous video to show indication. The blue Jeep passes on the left, the Impala turns right onto Green Street.
This is the first time that we've seen the Impala turn onto Green Street, correct?
That is accurate. This camera is facing north or southeast, mostly east, from the Breakers Bar area. There's a camera box here that faces down Green Street. You can also see down Hardin Street to some extent. This is the blue Jeep again, showing continuity. The blue Jeep
I'm
passes.
sorry to interrupt. Why was continuity necessary for this camera?
This camera's time is off approximately. The time indicated on here is 2 minutes slower than the time on the other cameras. We see that the Impala is turning right again on the Green Street. This camera is facing south from the adjacent corner on the same intersection.
Again, the same issue here in terms of time and continuity on this camera box there.
This time is closer to the other camera box, but it's still not accurate with most of the other ones. The Chevy Impala turned east on Green Street there. This is the Chevy Impala again highlighted. It turns right onto Green Street. Follows Green Street for approximately a block.
And that's towards Martin Luther King Park.
That is correct. It applies the brakes a few times. It turns slightly right and performs a fourth U-turn. And returns back to the intersection of Hardin and Green Street, coming to a rest at the intersection here. The light's red. Just to show that action a little more clearly, here's a zoom version of the same video. Pulls eastward on Green Street. And performs another U-turn.
Once the vehicle gets back to that intersection, which direction is it going to travel?
It gets to the intersection in the left turning lane to turn left, headed south again onto Hardin Street.
Back towards Bird Dog and Divine?
That's accurate. We viewed this camera angle earlier. It's facing north west, looking down Hardin Street at the parking lot beside Natural Vibrations and the Bird Dog.
And the approximate time on this camera?
Indicated at 2:08 a.m. See here a black Chevy Impala pulling toward the same Impala, turning back into the same parking lot.
Does it drive all the way through again this time?
This time it stops halfway through the parking lot and backs into a parking space, as indicated by the headlights flashing up against the back of the cars across the parking lot.
Are there some continuity vehicles in place here as well?
Absolutely. There's a white car, a silver car. We will be seeing soon. A gray minivan follows behind. Followed by the black Chevy Impala pulling out of the parking space back into the parking lot. Gray van re-enters traffic. Chevy Impala.
And what, if anything, did you observe about the positioning of the seats in that vehicle at this point?
The driver's side seat appears to be reclined significantly. This is also, out of all of the surveillance I've viewed, the time in which most light enters the cabin of the vehicle. Car turns right, headed south again on Hardin Street. This is a previously viewed angle before that we've seen already, but just a little later. It's turned slightly to the right of the video we just saw.
Now, where are we in time on this clip as it pertains to the previous clip?
This clip has started 3 minutes earlier.
So that is the same, the time on this camera is the same link to the same camera we just saw. We've just rewind the time a little bit.
Exactly.
Okay.
This camera angle shows the full amount after the black Chevy Impala follows behind the victim heading north on Hardin Street. It follows this red car. And it turns into Green Street. You can't see the U-turn previously shown.
So it's 2:06, is that right?
Yes.
And the Impala is about to pass on Hardin?
Yes, heading north right here, followed by the blue Jeep again.
Okay.
It turns right on the Saluda, or onto Green Street, I apologize. Performs a U-turn and comes back out, enters this parking lot, backs into a parking space, and then re-enters traffic.
So is it fair to say that this is just showing Ms. Josephson during the time of the cameras that we previously watched a few minutes ago at the U-turn by Martin Luther King Park and all that.
Yes, sir. The next slide is two camera angles, two that we just previously looked at, but I made a larger video canvas. Proximity of the cameras lend themselves to be put side by side. They don't match perfectly, but it is pretty close.
So you said these are the two previous camera angles we just saw, is that right?
Yes, sir. You see a black Chevy Impala turning left into the parking lot. The white car enters the frame. The young lady comes out, throws some garbage into the trash can. You see the Impala had backed into a parking spot on the left of the frame there. A car, silver car, tries to pull out into traffic. It's being blocked by another car in traffic. Car comes slows down in front of Miss Josephson. She attempts to enter it, and it pulls off.
And as she's doing that, as she's approached this silver car that ultimately pulls off after she attempted to get into it, where is the Impala during this?
The Impala is over here, still in the parking lot behind the gray minivan.
Okay. Once the Impala pulls out of the lot, which direction does it turn?
It turns right, headed south. It turns into this handicap spot right here.
What, if anything, do you observe about the Impala as it makes the turn?
It jumps the curb right here with its rear wheel and pulls into the handicap spot here. And Miss Josephson enters the rear passenger door of the car. The car goes into reverse. You see the reverse lights. It tries to back into oncoming traffic. Oncoming traffic passes. It attempts again to back into traffic. And then it continues southward on Hardin Street. This is the only video included in the presentation that was not provided by statewide security. It was provided by the business, Bird Dog. It's their private company's surveillance video.
And that was from Stacy's exhibit number 3. correct?
Yes, sir.
Is the time the same on this video as the previous one?
The time on this video appears to be approximately a minute and a half fast comparatively to the previous videos we have just watched. Samantha Josephson is sitting right here.
the entrance to the park and exit to the parking lot that we've been referencing in prior videos. Can you describe where that is in relation to Ms. Josephson?
It is directly behind the way that she is standing right now, slightly to the left. The sidewalk is here. The parking lot entrance is here from Hardin Street. Parking lot is on the other side of this corner of the building.
Is the Impala about to come into frame?
Yes, sir. It will turn right into the parking lot behind her. There it is. Entering the parking lot. And again, the white car that the young lady comes out of to throw some trash away in the trash can nearby.
Followed by which car?
Followed by a silver car, followed by a gray minivan, followed by the black Impala.
This silver car, that's the one that she's going to attempt to get into, is that right?
That is accurate. See the black Impala pulling back out into traffic shortly, and it jumps its rear passenger tire on the curb. Enters the handicap parking spot. Ms. Josephson enters the rear passenger door. Closes the door. The driver attempts to back into Hardin Street with oncoming traffic. And pulling out into the right lane. We're headed south on Hardin Street. The next camera angle is nearby the bird dog. It's a camera that we have previously looked at, looking more southeast,
Back towards Divine.
back toward Divine. See the headlights as the Impala pulls into the handicap parking spot. Wait a moment. Tends to back up, stall briefly because of oncoming traffic. And then it re-enters traffic, passes this vehicle on the left, behind the silver car. Pulls to the intersection of Divine and Hardin Street in the right-hand lane, comes to a stop at the stoplight. This is another previously viewed camera angle facing north at the corner of yesterday's is on Divine and Hardin Street. You see the silver car, the black Chevy Impala here in the right-hand lane. As the light turns green, continue southward on Hardin Street
Towards Blossom.
toward Blossom Street. This is another camera up high on the opposite side of the building on yesterday's, looking down to Santee and Hardin Street. You'll see from this angle, for continuity purposes, a delivery car with a car topper moving south down on Hardin Street. Followed by a black Chevy Impala, a gray car, and a gray truck. This is another video from the Cotton Gin that we have viewed previously. This is the 5 Points area. This is moving further south on Hardin Street. The first camera we'll look at is the camera outside of Cotton Gin. And there's another camera further south on Hardin Street facing up Duncan Road. Again, you'll see.
So this camera is looking away from 5 Points towards Hardin Street, correct?
Yes, this is Hardin Street, and this is the intersection of Blossom and Hardin Street. Hardin Street continues up a hill past that light. Here's the delivery car with the car topper. Here's the black Chevy Impala, gray car, gray truck again, showing continuity as it moves further south up the hill on Hardin Street.
Continuity being important on that video because the time there is
Several minutes off. This is further down Hardin Street looking at Duncan. This is Duncan Street. This is Hardin. The camera is perpendicular.
to the left on Hardin is 5 Points. To the right, is that towards the Rosewood area?
That is true. Rosewood Drive, yes, sir. And you'll see car topper, delivery car, Chevy Impala passes it on the left and continues south on Hardin Street. Further continuity, you'll see a gray car and a gray truck. At this point, continuity became difficult to achieve because there's not as much density of activity on screen.
Can you explain what that means?
The time of day that this occurred, there's not a lot of activity to be captured on camera. There's not a lot of cars moving around. There's not a lot of pedestrians on the street. So I was not able to find continuity in between camera angles, or necessarily use just the time stamps on the video footage to find more video related to this Impala. However, we did have access to Samantha Josephson's GPS data on her cell phone that indicated that the car had turned down here, never made it to this intersection, but had come down to Rosewood, past this public supermarket here, and then south on Kilbourne, then back east on one of these roads here, back up South Beltline up to this area, and then I could not find any other.
And you said that the car, that you did have information that traveled on Rosewood Drive, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And then you said down South Kilbourne.
Yes, sir.
And according to this map, what part of Columbia is that in?
This is the Rosewood District.
Okay.
This is 5 Points. So we've got it traveling so far to about here. And then I was able to find some additional clips based off of the GPS data from her phone.
All right.
The next two camera angles is outside of the Publix shopping center on Rosewood Drive. The first camera is facing west. The second camera is facing east. This is the black Chevy Impala here at 2:14 a.m. There's a gray SUV and a red car stopped at the intersection. Light turns green. This one has a turn lane. And all cars proceed east on Rosewood Drive. This is the black Chevy Impala again. The next angle is opposite of that corner. You'll see all of the cars moving west. East. Oh, my apologies. Continuing down Rosewood Drive. This next camera is on South Kilbourne Avenue at the intersection of Live Oak Street.
And as we look at this map, you said the next camera is here on Kilburn, South Kilburn.
Yes.
Where is that in relation to South Ott?
South Ott Street is further to the west by, I would say, 500 feet. Oh, there it is. Yes. So it runs at an angle. It runs from northwest to southeast and then turns and runs more in a north-south orientation.
Okay.
I believe the time on this is fast by about 2 minutes. It should be closer to around 2:18. See, it's following this car. It turns left onto Live Oak Street. That intersects with South Beltline Boulevard.
All right, and this area, South Beltline, the next camera angle is where?
So Live Oak is right here, right at the very bottom of the screen. South Beltline Boulevard runs up into an intersection with Rosewood Drive where we have 2 camera angles. Beltline continues north by Midlands Technical College.
And I'm sorry, if you could go back 1 second. Just to help orient where we are in Columbia, where is this as it pertains to the area where we saw the Impala coming into town on Divine Street earlier? I know it's not on the map. But
Just off this map, near the Staples business right here, the cameras would be approximately on the top edge of this monitor. It's the first set of cameras that we found.
so then which direction from here would Columbia at 5 Points be, and which direction would Sumter be?
Columbia and 5 Points would be to the west. Sumter is to the east. 5 Points is northwest. This camera angle is facing east on the corner of Rosewood Drive and Beltline. Like Chevy Impala crosses the intersection. And then another angle looking more northward. Chevy Impala moving north on Beltline Boulevard.
Does it continue on to Divine Street?
It does not.
What does it do prior to getting to Divine?
We have another camera at the business of Chex Plus, outside of Chex Plus, looking northwest from the Chex Plus building, looking across Beltline Boulevard. It was driving north on Beltline Boulevard and performs another U-turn, turns south. Based off of Samantha Josephson's GPS data, I was not able to locate any more camera angles in the Rosewood area. All of the provided video that I went through had no more instances from Samantha Josephson's phone to indicate that we could find any. I looked through several of them. I was not able to find any.
All right, what are we looking at on this map?
The defendant's phone indicated that at a certain time frame, around 3:20 a.m., that the phone was traveling east on Garner's Ferry Road. This is a map of where we have 3 cameras at the intersection of Garner's Ferry Road, which is 378, and Veterans Parkway, I believe. There's 3 angles. The first view is this one, camera 2, and then camera 3 in that order.
And so to orient everyone, 5 points. We saw Divine Street earlier. That's correct on the
Yes.
car's way into town.
Garner's Ferry Road turns into Divine Street at the intersection of Rosewood. Divine Street continues all the way into 5 Points.
Okay. And so we're now down on the other side of that area, headed back out eastbound
Towards
towards.
Sumter.
Okay.
Go for it. You gotta stop it.
We were just about.
This is the car here, black Chevy Impala, moving east. Again, from this angle, it'll move from frame left to frame right. And again, this camera looks east, black Chevy Impala is headed off Garner's Ferry Road eastbound. This is the last video of the video we were provided that I was able to find the Chevy Impala.
And finally, jumping back in time, this is the bird dog video, is that right?
That is accurate.
And based on your review of all of the cameras that we've discussed and the cameras that are in evidence, after this camera, this time frame, is there ever another point in which Ms. Josephson appears on any camera at any point?
I was not able to see, due to the low light and all the camera angles, I was not able to see Ms. Josephson again.
This is the last time she was seen.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Those are all my questions.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll break now for lunch and return at 2:30. Please do not discuss the case.